Hey, welcome back. In today's game, I want to cover a First Book of Morphy, Game 19. This one is between Adolf Anderson and Paul Morphy. Paul Morphy has the black pieces and is going to face the King's Gambit. And again, this took place in Paris in 1858. We're on opening rule number 8, play to get control of the center. And that's going to be what we're focusing on for this game. So let's go ahead and start the game, and I'll go over some of the notes here from the book. We have e4, e5, f4, e captures f4, bishop c4, and knight f6. Again, black's threat is to go c6 and then d5 to put a pawn in the center. White goes e5, and again, this is a mistake. White is attacking too soon and has given up control of d5. Which is, again, you see the two holes which white was covering. The white pawn was covering. And now they're gone. Black responds with the counterattack. D5. And white goes B3. Again, if white decides to take, then we end up with black capturing the bishop. And then black ends up capturing the pawn on G2, ready to castle or develop some more, and this is good for black. So white retreats the bishop to b3. Then we have knight e4. Right, so as soon as you see this move, knight e4, you should probably think, okay, I need to kick out the knight as soon as possible with d3, right? You can play d3 first to kick the knight out, right? And then play knight c3 and castle. That would be probably the plan for white. And of course, if you play d3, the knight might go here to attack this bishop, which is fine. We're going to develop, and then knight captures, we capture with the a pawn, and then we're castling, and we're ready to develop the rest of our pieces. So again, white goes knight f3, and then black goes bishop g4, pinning the knight. And again, here, the knight was attacking these squares and defending the pawn, but because with the pin on, with the bishop on g4, pinning the knight, now black wants to take so that the knight doesn't control the center squares. Again, here it says black prepares bishop c5. So black is trying to do the following. Take and have the queen take so the bishop can take on d4. Okay, and then here it says that black can also play take with black's threat is also if a random move like a3, then black takes with the bishop, queen takes, and then queen h4 check. Gf3, and then white can capture with the knight. If queen takes, then the pawn takes the queen. If the a pawn takes the knight, then we capture we don't have the option, but we can place maybe queen captures on g3 and then trade queens, right? So it kind of look like this. Right, but again, at this point, white's best move is to kick out the knight with d3. Instead, white castles, and then black plays knight c6. Again, this is not good because, as we've mentioned before, in the book, it does mention that before castling, you want to have control of the center. So here, black has control of the center, so our first priority should be to kick out the knight and then to castle. Okay, so here it says still too soon for bishop c5. So here we go bishop c5. And if a random move like a3, If bishop takes, now the rook takes, and white will protect the d4 pawn with the queen. So we have bishop a4, again threatening to take the knight. The struggle for control of d4 rages on, but by pinning and capturing the knight, white invests two more moves in the bishop. Right, so that means that white has to move the bishop twice to a4 and to c6 to capture the knight. So next we have g5. Otherwise, white had d3, kicking the knight out, and bishop captures f4. Right. So this is pretty much what black is doing. What black is saying is black wants to hold on to the f4 pawn. Right. So he knows if he does some other type of move, maybe bishop c5. Now black is going to counterattack with d4, and then if the bishop retreats, then the bishop takes on f4, right? So therefore, before playing bishop c5, black could prepare or holds on to the f4 pawn. So we have g5, bishop takes on c6, black captures with the b pawn, d4, and c5. So again, this is smart by black, using the capturing the pawn on c6 to attack the d4 pawn with c5. So next we have c3. White defends the pawn. Bishop e7, b4, and now again, if you take either way, it's here again, it's the same, except if you capture on d4, then white has the option of capturing with the queen. And now that means that the queen on d4 is going to put pressure on this d5 pawn. Right? So black decides to capture the b4 pawn. So see b4, black castles. Again, here, if you decide to take the pawn, then white has queen a4 check and wins the bishop. So black castles, queen b3, rook b8, a3, c5. And again, the point is, when the d pawn captures c5, then we take with the bishop with check, and the pawn is pinned. So if the pawn takes, we win the queen. So white goes knight c3. Black takes on c3. Queen captures c3. C captures on b4. A captures on b4. Bishop takes on b4. Queen d3. And now the threat for white is to take the a pawn. So therefore, black plays a5. Right? And then now we have h4. Again, and here just mentions that, well, here just mentions that a5 is the best move, because if you go queen c7, you have the queen protecting a pawn, which is a bad defense pretty much. So we have a5. And h4 here just says it's a common theme in the King's Gambit. Because when black holds on to the pawn, that it restricts white's rook and white's dark squared bishop. So black will have to play g4 to destroy this pawn structure. So h6, h captures on g5, h captures on g5, g3. Right, so now here, again, you can try to guess the move. But what does white want to do? White wants to take, right? And then black takes, and then bishop takes. And now pretty much the G file will be open, right? Except for the bishop being on there. So again, if we could have if we have one of our pieces there, that would be great. And this is the rook, right? So rook b6 to rook g6 is the idea. So when white takes, we take, bishop takes, we have our rook here in line with the white king. So black goes rook b6, rook g6. Rook b6 first, rook a2, and then rook g6. So again, so white knows this, so he wants to put a rook on g2 for himself to be lined up against black's rook on g6. So rook g6, rook a2. And again, this is a mistake. If you see the alignment, they're both on light squares, so this is a mistake. Right. So bishop h3, e6, bishop captures on g2, e captures on f7 with check. Now again, here it's very important to figure out what's going to happen if you capture, and you have to see that the knight can jump here to this square and fork the g6 square and the f7 square. So if you take with the rook, knight e5 is a fork, and you're gonna lose an exchange. Same thing if you take with the king. If king captures on f7, then knight e5 with check, and you're gonna lose the rook on g6. So that's why black played king g7. And again, here it notes that the threats with knight e5 were coffee house traps. So white captures on king with king g2, queen c8, and here it just notes that this is a positional move. From d8, the black queen had 10 squares which she could move. Right, so let's go ahead and cover them. Again, the main idea is that here the black queen is limited. 9, 10, maybe there if it's covered by the pawn. Now from c8, the queen may now choose from 18 squares, including h3, and she has checks on h3, c2, c4. She has a capture on c1. She can skewer on c4, and she can pin on g4. Right. So here she has checks. Here she can pin the pawn. Right. She can capture the bishop. And again, it's not immediately, but as the game goes on, these options are available. If the queen wants to sacrifice, again, the queen here is just more active. And here again, it notes that world champion Steinitz called this move queen c8 a move of high positional genius. Again, here it says, which is a fancy way of saying that queen c8 prepares to develop black's queen with threats. So now we have knight e5, rook h6, coordinating the heavy pieces. G captures on f4, rook f to h8. So black is going for the king. fg5, rook h2 check, king g1. And the idea is to check the king again, move it to the third rank to skewer the queen. Right, so we want the king to go up here so we can check with the rook on h8 and win the queen. So rook h1, king f2, rook 8 to h2, king e3, rook h3, and then knight defends with knight f3. Rook takes on f3, rook captures on f3, queen captures on e1 with check. Queen captures on c1 with check, and here's where white resigns. Again, if king f2, then we have this checkmate here. So let's go ahead and recap here where white lost the game, because I mean white pretty much did not have control of the center when white castled. So this was a mistake, right? A better move here was knight to c3 to defend this pawn. And then after your pawn is defended, then you can probably, and then knight goes c6, right? Maybe the game continues. So let's go ahead and do a little comparison. Yeah, this is a mistake. Now a couple moves later, white has a dominant knight in the center, has to be kicked out as soon as possible. White does not kick it out in castles. So again, this is not good for black. And if we just play some moves here, right, c6, maybe knight here, takes, and then here, maybe if we take, pawn takes, and now we play the bishop back. Right, some moves like this, right, and then where white can castle, but again, white is more safer here, developing both knights and taking in the center, compared to having the knight here and the bishop already here and castling. Right, so this is a much safer position to castle in compared to what happened in the game. So when white finally decides to castle, there's a bishop already past the middle line in enemy territory, which is not good at all. Again, thank you for your time, and I will see you in the next video.